Okay. Yo, what's up, my metal firecrackers? This is Blazing What Ifs, blazing his way into another video. This is What If Deku Was a Dragon Slayer Part 2. Now, here's the thing. I've recorded this before. I recorded this one time. I sat there recording it for an hour. Turns out that my phone wasn't recording. Even though I knew for a fact that I hit the record button. Apparently it didn't record anyway. So needless to say, I was angry. Anyway, that was yesterday, but I'm over it. Mostly because I think I have a better way of doing this for now. I think I messed up a few times in there, and this one's gonna be better. Hopefully. Now, moving on. I was literally so angry that I thought I was gonna put this series on pause. Stupid. Freaking. Whatever. I literally thought I was gonna put this series on pause and do something, else that I wanted to do, a different series. That wasn't part of the DEKUVERSE at all. It was gonna be a what if I was in My Hero Academia. But we don't need to worry about that. But we don't need to worry about that. So yeah. I'm thinking of putting a little teaser for the 1,000 subscriber special in here. So I hope you pay attention, because I'm gonna purposefully make it as vague as possible, but I think it's still gonna be pretty obvious. But anyway, let's get into it. What if Deku was a Dragon Slayer, Part 2. So we see Izuku standing there, looking up at the gates of UA. His future laid out before him. When a girl with spiky red hair that goes about down to her mid-back, I'd say, accidentally bumps into him. And they both look each other in the eyes. Neither of them fell down, no, they were both still standing. It was just a small bump. Izuku quickly apologized, being the kind-hearted boy that he was, but when he actually looked at the girl, he seemed to have some sort of sense of familiarity. The sharp teeth, the eyes, something was just familiar about her. Then something clicked in his head. At the same time, she was having the same thoughts about him. His red eyes, the sharp teeth, the black hair. Wait, as something clicked in her mind, as they both said at the same time, Izuku said, Rara? His nickname for the girl that he had met when he was 4 years old. Izu? The girl said, looking at the boy that she hadn't seen in 10 years. Before promptly hardening her hand and slapping the ever-loving out of him. Kind of crying. Well, not kind of crying, but tears threatening to pour down her face as she tried to hold them back. as she said, "Why'd you leave? Why'd you run? Did you know how hard that was for me? Most importantly, what are you doing here? Why now?" Izuku stood back up after being slapped onto the floor. As he said, "Not gonna lie, I might have deserved that. But I don't regret running away. I don't. She says, "Why? Don't you?" Now getting kind of angry at him. He said, "Because the doctor lied." And she said, "What do you mean?" As he continued, "The doctor lied. I'm not quirkless. I just had an extremely difficult time awakening my quirk. I needed to train. Harder than anyone else. This is before my quirk manifested. And so I'm here to make good on a promise I made to myself. I hope you get in too. Because if you do, I'll show you what my quirk is." Is this inspiring her to do even better in the upcoming entrance exams as he walked away? Now, Izuku, being as intelligent as he is, so hold on, let me just make sure I'm still recording because I don't want what happened last time to happen again. Now, Izuku continued. He easily passed the test, scoring 100%. Easily on the written test, 100%. Kirishima getting around 89%, let's say. The benchmark was about 80%, or you're not going to be accepted. You had to get at least 80% on the test, on the written test. Now it's time for the explanation of the whole show. As President Mike would probably think of it as one big show. President Mike doing his normal thing, explaining, and Ida getting up saying, "You missed one of the robots, I see." I'm making fun of him. "This is unacceptable. Well, this is shameful towards UA. It is shameful to think that UA would make such a stupid mistake." I'm sorry to all those lovers of Ida. I like Ida too, but, at this point in time, he's just being stupid. He doesn't call Izuku out. He's not mumbling or anything. He's just sitting there making it look like he's paying attention even though he's not. He's just like, this is fairly obvious. He doesn't even have to, listen to President Mike to know what's going on. 1-point robot, 2-point robot, 3-point robot. big giant robot, probably not even worth anything. Just thinking about it logically, that's probably how they do it. They just make it an obstacle or something. He didn't even have to pay attention to realize that. But he didn't want anyone calling him out, so he made him look like he was paying attention. And then they get to the site. Izuku's preparing to go. As you hear President Mike over the intercom saying, "And let the race begin." As the doors open, Izuku immediately oh, doors are open? Boom. He transformed and flew off. Off at full speed. Now his full speed was slightly slower than Ida's, but Ida didn't take off immediately. It was what's that kid doing? He's so stupid. They didn't even count down yet. Yeah, as they heard President Mike's voice again, "What are you doing? Waiting for a countdown? Well, there are no countdowns in a real battle." And they're all oh shit. And follow him. Now, let's just skip over a few things. Izuku saved people whenever they were in trouble, healed their injuries if they needed it. And so, needless to say, he was racking up a lot of hero points, to which he had no idea existed. He just felt like helping people. But that did not mean that he was losing out in villain points department by any means. No, by the end of it, he had about 90 villain points. After all, this is a Dragon Force we're talking about. These robots weren't standing up to that. He would manipulate his blood to come out like massive claws. He would do a blood dragon fist in which the blood would come out of his body and almost make his fist bigger and have more reach. As they continued on doing this for 30 minutes, or almost 30 minutes, it was really closer to 28, he'd already earned 90 villain points and almost 50 hero points just from the miscellaneous things he's been doing. Saving people when they took off more than they can chew and healing their wounds and making sure they felt like everything was going to be okay when they felt like their life was going to end. And that's when a large shadow fell over the fake city. He heard screaming. And naturally, being the kind-hearted person he is, he flew over there as quickly as possible. Starting to break out into a sweat at the amount of power he was using. When he found a girl, red hair, spiky, looked like her skin was made of stone, trapped under some rubble. It looked heavy. She probably couldn't get her way out of that. Of course, Izuku knew who it was immediately upon seeing her. He immediately rushed and threw the rubble off of her, and pulled her to her feet and said, Can you run? She said, yeah. He said, good, then go. She hesitated, but he continued to insist, which caused her to run. Izuku was holding his own against the zero-pointer, but was being pushed back with every punch. And every attack he did was barely scratching the thing, not doing any real damage. He said, "Fine, I guess it's going to be that way," he said, going from his Dragon Force form to his full dragon form. Now, in his full dragon form, he has a different ability that he can only use in his dragon form. Excuse me. Thinking of a name to call it, because I know what it is, but I don't know a good name to call it. So for now, let's call it Bloodtail Spike. And so what happens is, if you can see his tail in the background, then you know why I'm calling it that. So in his dragon form, with his extremely long tail, his massive body is literally the size of the zero-pointer. He is on par with the zero-pointer in terms of size. Everyone in the stadium was shocked at the sheer size of this dragon. Everyone started, and there was a certain hair-colored boy, half his hair red, half his hair white, who sat there thinking, "Ryukyu's secret love child?" Perhaps. I mean, who knows at this point. Never change. As he slammed his tail, the spikes of his tail, into it, conjuring the blood around them, the blood surged through, clean through the zero-pointer with absolutely no resistance. But Izuku then, in his massive dragon form, clung on to the zero-pointer and steadied it so that it wouldn't fall, just to make sure that nobody else was injured. Everybody else was surprised and looked towards Nezu, who was looking at his file, saying that his quirk was called Blood Dragon. That he had decided to call his quirk Blood Dragon. Which was curious to everyone else there, except for All Might, as he knew what was happening. No, even All Might. He knew that his abilities were good at healing, but it was strange for someone to be... He didn't realize that it was also a draconic in nature, like Ryukyu's quirk. And that's literally how he was thinking, his questions ending halfway only to become another question. As if trying to find the right words. No, things were strange. And he turned back into his human form and looked back at Kirishima, or Ra-Ra as he called her. And he said, surprise. Ejira was in complete shock. She didn't know what to say, but that's when they all heard,
And your time is up.
as they heard President Mike over the speakers saying that the test was over. They had 2 weeks until they would receive their, notification if they were accepted or not. Now, the thing going through all the teachers' minds were, we have to accept this kid. Like, even if he got a poor grade on the written exam, which they were almost sure that he would, as he was missing for 10 whole years. They said even if he gets a bad grade on the written portion, we still need to accept him, because if he becomes some sort of vigilante or, God forbid, a villain, who the knows what he's going to be capable of. Little did they know, he had the potential to be even more powerful than he already was. But he wouldn't be able to get to that point just yet. Just yet. Now, moving on. For the next 2 weeks, Izuku and Ejira got close again. Ejira started to notice all the changes Izuku had. He was more confident. Now that he had his quirk, he was more confident. But he never lost that selfless attitude of his. But he had figured out when to prioritize himself over others. And she liked that change in him. She noticed her cheeks getting a bit warmer when she was around him, but she couldn't quite explain what. Just yet. It was her first experience with love, after all. She couldn't tell what it was yet. Izuku, though, was taught many things. So he could tell, even though she couldn't, that she had a crush on him. And over these 2 weeks, as they got to know each other, he started to see himself slowly falling for her, too, without even realizing it. And without even realizing it, they were hanging out, but their hangouts were more like dates than anything. But he decided not to bring it up to Ejira. After all, she didn't really notice. So they aren't officially dating. But every time they hung out together, it was basically a date. And so we get to the first day of school. Obviously, they were both accepted. Then they have a month until school starts. So then they hang out for that month as well. Well, before and nearing the end of this month, she starts to realize that what this weird feeling inside of her chest, what these butterflies in her stomach are. But she wanted him to ask her because she didn't want to, be rejected. because of how he was now, was way out of her league. At least that's what she was thinking. When she didn't even realize that Izuku was waiting for her to ask him out because he was just enjoying the show. Hold on, let me put on my glasses. Okay. No, the world is so much clearer. No, but seriously. So Izuku's just watching the show. She never understood why he giggled so much, but she will eventually. Whenever she was around, he giggled a lot. She didn't realize that it was because he was waiting for her and he found it funny. Watching her become so shy for no reason. And at the first day of school, they were both in the same class. They both made their way to school. Ingo being Ingo and making sure he has everything that he would need for school, and nothing that he wouldn't. Only the necessities, as she would say. And so when they found themselves at school, Izuku walked into the room, and everybody looked at him. After all, he had the highest score out of everyone, with 90 villain points and 150 hero points. So, meaning he had a grand total of 240 points, beating out All Might's score when he was in school, as All Might's score was 230. Now, Ida, we're gonna say, is smarter in this, and could see that Izuku only helped because he wanted to help somebody, not because he saw some greater thing in the exam. And he berates himself a bit because of it, because he didn't feel that urge to help. Instead, he only sought what benefited him when he was trying to become a hero, which meant he should be putting others above himself. Now, as they sat there, staring at him, it's like, Sue said, "Do you all mind? Look, I know I'm handsome, but jeez." The girls face palmed, and one boy in the class didn't take kindly to that comment. And I could only assume as to who that would be. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Mineta. But no sooner than those words left his mouth, I speak English, guys, I swear. That would appear to be a yellow caterpillar quirked person was lying on the floor, or just outside of the door, saying if you're here to make friends, then you can leave now. Which promptly shut everybody up, as they all just looked at whatever that thing was as a human being crumbled out of it. It's like, oh, it's just a sleeping bag. Well, other idiots of the classroom who God only knows how they were able to pass the written portion were thinking, oh my god, he shed his he shed his skin and became a human being. I think we all know who that one was.
Denki.
As he took out a uniform from behind his desk, he said, "Put these on and meet me outside at the training field. Got it?" As he just walked out of the room, dragging his sleeping bag. Everybody went to the changing rooms and got changed. Izuku, while changing, someone seemed to notice that he had scars all over his body. Said, "Whoa, bro, what is that about?" He said, looking up at the blonde with a black lightning bolt in his hair. He said, just scars I got from training is all. Like, dude, how intense was your training if it hurt you that bad? He says, as he looks down at a purple-haired freak who spoke to him while trying to look through a hole in the wall. Izuku then kicked the weird purple-haired guy and said, "Hell times 5," as he put on his PE shirt and finished changing and walked out of the locker room. All the girls were celebrating as they knew Mineta was spying and that one of the boys cared enough to actually try and stop him. The girls then plugged up the hole to make sure that no one ever did it again. And walked away. And they finished changing, and then everybody met at the training field. And Midoriya, you were the one who scored first place in the practical exam, and tosses him a baseball. Well, what's the farthest you've thrown in middle school? Says, if I remember correctly, it was about 102 meters? Everyone was shocked by this. Like, 102 meters? Because you're not allowed to use your quirk in, physical examinations, unless told otherwise. So, they were all surprised that he was able to throw it so far without a quirk. So then what, how far is he going to throw it with a quirk? So, Izuku took the ball started throwing it up and down. As Aizawa said, throw that with your quirk and don't hold back. Said, okay, but I'm gonna need a lot of space. Aizawa understood. He saw what he did. And Kirishima, what's his name? Yuma? As well as Ida, all knew what he was talking about. Ochako was in a different area, but those people knew what he was talking about and were promptly backing away, trying to convince the class to do the same. As they followed him, and Bakugo did so reluctantly, or rather I shouldn't say, Aizawa tied him up and then dragged him away. Bakugo was saying, there's no way that nerd could be that powerful that we need to get a good distance away. As Izuku then transformed into his Dragon Force. The process happening almost instantaneously, causing a shockwave that destroyed some nearby windows of the nearby building. But he wasn't done yet. The people mentioned before knew he wasn't done yet. As he jumped and did a spin in the air, turning into his full dragon form, cupping the... Don't take that out of context. Cupping the baseball in one wing. As he started to do a blood dragon wing attack, which in this form would be very, very powerful. As he then used his blood dragon wing attack to fling the ball. I speak English, I swear. The ball as far as he possibly could, not holding anything back. As the ball flew, not one, not two, but 3,567.2 meters. Everyone was shocked by this. As Izuku then reverted back to his dragon force, and then back to human form. Ignore that. Izuku then said, how'd I do? Bakugo was pissed. Because the nerd had a quirk. The nerd had that kind of ability the entire time. What was he, hiding it or something? That nerd thinks he's better than me. Well, I guess I'll just have to show him. And Bakugo would be a little bit stronger than in canon because Izuku would constantly be beating him, and that would, cause him to want to become stronger and put more effort into his training. because before he was too cocky to train extremely hard. But after he kept getting his ass beat by Izuku, he decided to start training like really hard. Hold on. Yeah, okay, cool. And so everything goes to canon. The only things that would be different is Izuku's speed would be second highest, just behind Ida's. Ida's being 3.5 seconds, his being 4.1 seconds. Which I don't think anyone had a higher score than that. You know. But in this case, everyone else is slower. For the grip strength, he got about 150 pounds. Some change, but it's not very noticeable. He went in... Actually, you know what? He would go into his Dragon Force, because obviously he can't do it as a dragon. It's too small. He goes into his Dragon Force, and basically pulls a Luffy and does like a second gear kind of a thing on his arm. Not to increase speed, but to increase physical strength, that rush of adrenaline, and basically forcing himself to have adrenaline as he clenches it and gets about 300 and some odd change, like 305.6 pounds, which is second only to Mezzo, who, duple arms. I think his name was Mezzo. But Mezzo had gotten 326.8 pounds of force. So he wasn't that far behind. And when he was lifting, no matter what he was doing, he was lifting at least 120 pounds. And it's because, again, he would be in his Dragon Force. Not his dragon form, not his full dragon form, as it would be too big, once again. Now, as for the endurance test, he would go into his full dragon form, and then continue to just fly. Until everyone else was exhausted, and he could continue going for quite some time. But by the end of it, to the point where they get to the ball throw again, he is sitting against a wall, completely exhausted. And he used up all of his energy, just maintaining his transformations. Because it does take some stamina to just stay in a transformation. Albeit quite minimal, you still have to maintain the transformation, which does cost energy. So he was just resting. Until the results came. Izuku was in first, as it was very impressive, as what he did was, not going to be outpaced by anyone, whereas everyone else had excelled in one thing or another. He excelled in almost everything, coming in first or second place in everything. Obviously, he only came in second in the ball throw due to Uraraka getting infinity. They then go on to, they then go to canon, everybody being moved down one spot, except for Bakugo coming in second place, so really everyone else would be moved down 2 spots. Well, everyone that was above Bakugo would be moved down another spot. So Bakugo did get second place. Yes. I'm gonna say for the ball throw, Bakugo ended up getting about 986.5 meters. It's almost breaking 1,000, but not quite. Which really pissed him off even more, because Izuku had gotten much more than that. But he didn't, go and try to attack Izuku like he did in canon. Instead, he said, he was just thinking to himself, well, now, I guess it just means I'm weak and I need to get even stronger. So he has that kind of mentality. He's not going to blame it on other people. He's going to blame himself for being weak instead of blaming other people for being, strong. He's still pissed off at Izuku for lying to him, or what he thinks he was lying to him about. Thinking that he's better, but he's going to try and prove that he's better by becoming even stronger. But of course we know that ain't happening. But of course we know Bakugo is not going to get stronger than Izuku is. And so, we move on. And Izuku's like, now, Ejira is seeing all the glances that the other girls are taking at Izuku. And she's starting to think, well, if he's not going to make the first move, then, I might as well, or else I'll lose my chance to, someone else in this class. Because, let's be honest, Izuku, he kinda hot. Low-key, kinda hot. No homo. But, well, so, she decides it's time to make her move. So, after school, they're walking home together. Ida joins them, and Ida and Izuku are gonna be good friends. Uraraka too. So basically, the Deku squad is gonna remain the same, except Kirishima is gonna be in the Deku squad, because you know why. The Baku squad will also remain the same, just minus Kirishima. Now, so they're going home and they're talking to each other, getting to know each other fairly well. And so, eventually, though, they do have to split off. Which they do, but Kirishima wanted to talk to Izuku for a bit. And, she asks him out, and he just laughs at her. And she says, "Why are you laughing?" He says, "I've been waiting for you to ask for a while now." And that's where I'm going to end it. I hope you enjoyed the video. This has been Blazing What Ifs. Blazing away.